Hello and welcome to The Gaggle, where we challenge and, if necessary, destroy media narratives. I'm George Szamuely. With me today, of course, is co-founder of The Gaggle, Peter Lavelle, host of RT's talk show Crosstalk. Well, yesterday, the newspaper of record, the New York Times, ran one of its classically long, tedious pieces by a correspondent of theirs, which, as is always the case with these types of articles, that supposedly it's reporting, but it's actually advocacy. What the article was advocating was that the Biden administration should appoint something called a, quote, reality czar, unquote. Not entirely clear what this reality czar was going to do, but the goal is to crush people holding conspiracy theories and who engage in disinformation. Now, of course, by conspiracy theory, they don't mean the theory that Vladimir Putin stole the 2016 election. That's not a conspiracy theory. The conspiracy theories are the conspiracy theories by people that the New York Times and presumably the people in the Biden administration disagree with. But the goal here seems to be to make sure that these nebulous people who hold views that the New York Times thoroughly disapproves of are either deplatformed, spied upon by the government, and there are tantalizing suggestions that they would be sent to re-education camps run by people very much in the frame of mind of the New York Times. It's kind of a very, very sinister development. So what's your take, Peter?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, this is very ideologically driven, and this ideology finds debate and dissent intolerable. And it comes from a good spot. They're really trying to help us, okay? I think they truly, truly believe that, okay? Because they live in a cult, and they have their tenets, okay? And they have their priesthood and their laity and the whole works, okay? And their scripts, everything, okay? And we're not surprised by this, okay? We've been seeing it going on for a while. Now they have all the levers of power. It's something you've pointed out rightly over the last couple of months, is that you can't really count much on the judiciary anymore. So I truly believe that they see the next 100 days, the next year, before the primary season starts for 2022, they want to button this up and put a bow on it. They want to get a lot done. Okay, it's no coincidence I've lost count the number of executive orders, 40 something, that Biden has signed, and people are really critical of Trump when he signed 7. Okay, so this is an agenda that's going places. Also, is something that we can't underestimate, and it's something the paper of record is painfully aware of, and so is the Washington Post, CNN. There's a very strong business angle to this too, because they've seen this proliferation of what essentially, I would say what you and I do is we do a combination of news and a whole lot of commentary. We don't hide that, okay? We're very clear on what our agenda is here. And we're not very much liked for it. But if you look at the New York Times, and we'll focus on them, in league with Google, with Facebook, with Twitter, they want to crowd us out, okay? And these are accredited news outlets worthy of your attention because they say so, okay? Oh, and by the way, they want all the revenue streams to go to them, okay, and their partners, okay, because they're seeing this on their whole business model. It unraveled a long time ago, but this is a pushback, but maybe their last final pushback, because their business models have all failed, except for big tech. Okay, and so if you can't beat them, join them, and that's exactly what these legacy outlets are doing. Is they're getting in league with big tech to survive. All right. And No coincidence, or good coincidence for the paper of record, is that the people in Silicon Valley, they think of more or less the same lines of people that are on the editorial board of the New York Times. So it's a perfect marriage, okay, a marriage in hell for the rest of us here. But the business element is very, very important, because they want to shift everything back to them. So, like, in Facebook, the only news, I'm only presuming here, but I wouldn't be surprised if there's only like 10 outlets that they will approve of, and if anything else, then it'll just get blocked. Okay, I wouldn't be surprised. Okay,
No,
and that means sites like antiwar.com. That means sites like the American Conservative. Okay, I'm not talking about wacko.
I think that's right. I think that that's exactly what it's about. So what they call conspiracy theories, what they call disinformation, are all views that they happen to disagree with and appear on alternative platforms that can generate income for the people. So that's why what they're really trying to do is pressure the internet companies, get rid of these people. And then, there are all sorts of ways that you can pressure them. So, you threaten them with removing the Section 230 immunity if they allow conspiracy theories to appear on their sites, on their platforms. So this becomes very interesting, because how do you create censorship? Well, you create censorship by saying, well, if you don't censor, we're going to come after you. And so then you just throw everyone off. Now, of course, the idea that there's a threat of violence is itself ludicrous, because, almost any speech can then just be censored because it might lead somebody to violence. I mean, remember, we have a Supreme Court ruling, a famous Supreme Court ruling from 1969, Ohio versus Brandenburg, which is that speech is free unless that there is an imminent of violence, and the person making that speech intends violence to happen. Otherwise, people are free to say, I want so-and-so dead, or I'm full of rage. So when Madonna said famously, I dream of blowing up the White House, that is part of free speech. Because you say, okay, there's no imminent threat of her blowing up the White House, but she's free to say it. But that's not really the way the New York Times thinks of it. And that's why there's a really bad faith element to this. Because remember, back in 2017, there was the shooting at the congressional baseball match. This was from a Bernie Sanders supporter. It was also at the height of Russiagate hysteria. After all, it doesn't take a genius to put two and two together and say, yeah, well, accusing the president of being a Russian agent and of Putin having stolen the election would lead this person to, to violent enactment. But that's, of course, not what the New York Times wants. The New York Times want to stick to this particular thing. The one act of violence that they want to address is what happened on Capitol Hill. Even though there was much less violent than what happened at the baseball game. I remember also Senator Rand Paul, who was assaulted by a neighbor, quite seriously. I mean,
in his own home.
Yeah, in his own home. He had 3 ribs broken. Again, that's all right. We don't talk about that. Or what happened during the summer, or the police fire stations that were destroyed. No, that's not it. No, let's just focus on the Capitol Hill. So there's a lot of bad faith involved in it. And as you say, yeah, there's definitely a nice commercial aspect to it as well.
Well, let's all remember what, popular speech doesn't need protections because it's popular, okay? But unpopular speech needs protections. That's why we have it as the First Amendment of the Constitution. Unpopular speech needs to be protected, even though it's unpopular. And so what that is the touchstone for us in understanding. I mean, and that was written by the founders, and we had a ruling all the way to 1969 about it. Okay, there's no such thing as hate speech. People talk about it all the time. Okay, but it doesn't really exist. All right. I mean, it can be hurtful, but it's not against the law.
Right.
Okay, I'd rather have unpopular speech than have someone tell me what speech is. See, what they want to move, they want to move into the direction of deter. You know, you and I were brought up on saying, we were told there are certain words that you shouldn't use because they're offensive. And I think you and I would agree that they are offensive. There's no need to use those words. But now they want to tell you what words you can use. See how they've turned it around?
Right.
It's being turned around completely. It's not what you shouldn't say, it's what you should say. Okay. And a government agency is going to regulate that?
Right.
I mean, this is absurd on its face, and what it's doing is it is invalidating the First Amendment, okay, and it's invalidating freedom of speech for tens of millions of people. I mean, for me, it's very simple. Let's argue about it. Let's debate about it, okay? And the left used to be, that was the touchstone.
I don't know whether that's true, but
well, no, I mean, look. A lot of things that the civil rights movement, this desegregation. Okay, there was a lot of rancor. Okay, but you had to decide. You had to make your case. Okay, right. And people made their case.
Right. And but I mean, there's also been plenty of dogma on the left, and laying down the dogma.
And you and I
always say, "Oh, that's a good thing, civil rights," and let's forget about all the other things. So.
No, George, you and I have studied the machinations of the left for our entire life. I know where you're coming from on that point, okay? Because they can be just as demagogic, if not worse, or equal to the demagogues on the right. And that's what I want to avoid, is demagoguery. But see, when demagoguery is the center, right. That's what is the most terrifying, because we used to be able to see where it was coming from. Now it's in the center going out.
Right. No, that's exactly right. And of course, even the very notion of a reality czar is terrifying. First of all, the idea that anybody has a kind of an opening to reality, that we know what reality is, you don't, that's associated with a czar. A czar is someone who has absolute power. So that, that already should send alarm bells ringing with anybody. But again, it's what are you going to censor? You're going to censor Alex Berenson, who challenges COVID orthodoxy. Plenty of doctors, medical doctors, people who have gone through medical schools have challenged every aspect of the COVID orthodoxy, about masks, about lockdowns, and so on. You're going to censor them because the New York Times thinks that this is disinformation. So basically, like, who are you to declare that this is disinformation? I mean, like that old joke, who died and made you God? But that's what's so chilling about this. And so here they are, they're proposing re-education camps, essentially having the FBI spying on people. Well, I don't really like these views. It might lead to violence. We better go arrest that person. This stuff is a very dangerous.
What it does is it leads to preemptive assumption of guilt. Okay, we're going to arrest you before you think it or before you do it. Okay, this is the path that they're going down to. I mean, one interesting kind of ricochet from all of this is something I was thinking about prior to our meeting here, is that all of these people that earned all these useless degrees over the last 20 years in American universities, they're going to have a job. Yes. They're going to be the diversity police, okay? Yes. And they'll be hired in droves, and it'll, and actually it's catering to the constituency that voted for them, okay? So, now get a degree in Antifa studies, get a degree in Black Lives Matter, and you instant federal job, okay?
Right, absolutely. And there are an awful lot of these kinds of think tanks springing up, sort of anti-extremism centers, combating counter-terrorism, studying domestic terrorism. All of this are lavishly funded. I mean, this is not just in the US, but also in the European Union, in the UK. They're lavishly funded by governments, and they are all in the business of, spying on others and terrifying the public. And of course, as a way of also getting more money from governments, that there are all these dangerous people who are about to embark on some terroristic crusade. And of course, it never happens, which is why they've pounced on this event on Capitol Hill, which, incidentally, is I mean, they're a lot more violent events than that one, despite whatever AOC claims. I thought I was going to die.
Well, the pathetic thing and terrifying thing about this too is if we go down this path here and they don't find these underground right-wing militias preparing to take over the government, if they don't find it, that means we have to dig deeper.
Exactly.
We have to go more extensive. See, this is what's going to happen because they know it's out there and they can't find it. Can't put. I mean, this latest threat that came out, I guess it was like less than a week ago. They didn't say what the threat. What we know, there's a threat.
That's a threat, exactly.
But they can't tell you what it is, except that there is a threat. I mean, the interesting thing is, I wonder if they're going to keep troops on Capitol Hill all the way to the midterms.
I think so. I think so. And of course, if the midterms go against the Democrats and go against the wishes of the New York Times, wait for the super conspiracy theory to reemerge that it was Putin who stole the midterms in alliance with the right-wing, white supremacist militia, hate groups, and whatever. So that conspiracy theory is on the back burner, waiting to reemerge in 2022.
Well, again, it gets down to this ideology that has failed so many people in the country, but it's been very successful for a very small group of the professional managerial class. This is their creed, okay? And it works for them. And if it doesn't work for you, well, we'll tell you how it should work for you. You're actually not doing so bad, okay? You still get to go to Walmart. Hey, that's something, I mean, the way they talk down to people,
yes.
Okay? And this is just going to cause so much more resentment.
Yes.
And again, you and I studied totalitarian regimes. This is exactly what they do. It's a culture of snitching on people. It is informing on people. It is encouraging children to inform on their family and their parents.
Right.
And you get rewards for it, okay? Because the professional managerial class will deem you worthy.
Yep.
Okay, and this is how you tear up the fabric of society, because you have a society of intense distrust and hatred for others, and that even our own history tells us where that can go.
Yep.
So I mean, these people just don't think out the law of unintended consequences. What lunatic would write something like that? I mean,
well, that's exactly. This was written by the New York Times' technology correspondent. So in other words, he's a staff person and presumably a reporter. In other words, he's supposed to be somebody who's giving a as objective and as truthful account of, quote, reality, unquote, as he can be. Instead, he is actually engaging in advocacy. And of course, the assumption underlying it is that the masses are profoundly stupid. They're all fooled by these terrible theories, and that it's up to us, educated people, who have been to university and got our college degrees. It's up to us to educate the masses, because otherwise they will, fall under the sway of terrible theories. And of course, there's nothing new about this. I mean, just as what you were saying. I mean, like, that kind of resembles the way the Bolsheviks thought. The masses are really stupid, and it's up to us, we're supposed to, on this higher level, to educate them and to extirpate all the bad influences that might lead them to do bad things.
And look what and after the revolution in China, the Reeducation Camps and the confessions and writing out your confession and show how you deviated from the ideology of the working class and peasants and all that. And if you did confess, and it was, and they thought you were convincing enough, they would rehabilitate you. I mean, you got off the hook, okay?
Right.
You know, you can't do this in a country like the United States after too long of a tradition of individualism, of free speech. This is really reaching way over your skis here. But I'll go back to what I said earlier. They see they're in a hurry. They're in a hurry, and that's why they're doing these things right now. Because the way they look at it is they can achieve as much as they can. It'll be very difficult to undo everything. Okay, so that's why they're grasping. They're so far out there.
Right,
and
that's a very good point, because the election was, from their perspective, a failure. The expected big Democratic majority never materialized. The presidential election, even if you discount all the fraudulent allegations, basically it was a very, very narrow win for Biden, a narrower win than Trump's in 2016. So it was not a great success. There was no mandate there. And therefore they know their own vulnerability. The other thing is also that the various conspiracies that they have peddled over the years have not been successful. They failed to persuade the public that Russia stole the 2016 election, despite the New York Times winning all these Pulitzer Prizes, Washington Post Pulitzer Prizes for these Russiagate stories. They failed to persuade the public. Just as during the first impeachment of Trump, they failed to persuade the public that Trump did anything terrible in his phone call with Zelensky. And even when they say, well, 70% of Republicans think that the 2020 election was stolen, well, that means you have failed to persuade the Republicans of your claim. You say that it wasn't stolen, you think everything was clean as a whistle. Well, you've obviously failed. You've failed to persuade people of this. So the fact that they want more and more of this kind of control to get a handle reality is a confession of failure. They failed to make their case.
Yeah, and that's that is the reason why they have to act fast now, because they feel that it'll be out of their slip through their hands seriously in a matter of months. When you think about it, I mean, it's only 24 months before the next election, and it's no coincidence that Washington D.C. should become a state, okay, which is obviously at odds with the Constitution. Now, let's do this. Change the Constitution. There is a mechanism to do that. Okay, the Constitution has been amended many times. Okay, right. And there is a procedure. It's laborious. It's a lot of hard work. It's intentionally made that way. Okay, and so go through the process. Okay, I'm open to that. Okay, but don't do it fiat without the consent of the people. All right, and that's see these people holding this ideology, they're the ones that believe in democracy the least.
Yes. Well, they can't, precisely because they don't trust the people, because the people are just so stupid that they vote the wrong way. So therefore, exactly, you have to let's get rid of democracy. And leave it all up to us. We'll decide what people should think. We'll decide who are the right people to hold office. And we can't have elections and allowing people just to decide whatever they want. No, that's not it.
It's very interesting. Since we're on democracy, there's a recall of Governor Newsom in California, and so now the accredited professional managerial classes across the country is coming out and supporting Newsom here. So I think it was Zuckerberg. He's come out and supporting. Okay. Yes. Yeah, because Newsom is in the club, okay, and he needs to be defended, okay. Well, these people in referendum, as a result of Brexit, I remember looking at the editorials all the way from Europe, all the way to the United States. That's too much democracy. Democracy.
Absolutely. So, and what you do when the results go the wrong way, you blame Russia or the white supremacist militia. But it's very interesting what you said about the Gavin Newsom. Watch now for the activists start challenging the signatures. You know, remember back in the election, all the signatures were absolutely correct. No problem there at all. Now you watch them suddenly come, hey, this signature, I think this is a fake. So
I bet you, Jeff Bezos would donate money.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Jeff Bezos. Hey, when it comes to his pocketbook, hey, we can't have mail-in voting. I mean, that's totally unreliable. What do you think? You know, when it comes to workers deciding whether they want to unionize, no, mail-in vote, only in-person voting. COVID be damned.
But see how this ideology is so much at odds with reality that they want to control, which they can't. Okay, they just start bending themselves into the most perverse pretzels. Okay, they want to completely reform the electoral system with HR 1. Okay, but when it comes to their favorites, to Newsom, to Amazon workers wanting to unionize, no. Okay, it's so selective, isn't it? Because they with HR 1 they think they can control the outcome, but when you verify signatures or when you have ban mail-in ballots, you can't determine the outcome. See, they will go down the path where they think they can determine the outcome.
Yes.
Because they abhor democracy, because people shouldn't be able to vote, essentially, because they don't know how to do it. Okay,
no, that's
right. That's the message at the end of the day.
Exactly. No, that's exactly right. And that's why when people talk about reality and truth, it should send chills down everybody's spine, because it means that we have some in the kind of a Platonic world in which we have the rulers who understand reality, and the masses, the great unwashed, smelly masses, who of course are chasing the shadows, like in Plato's cave. That's it. That is the most chilling vision, and it has had a huge influence, of course, on human history.
But we've seen this before. And one of the interesting things is that what you had with Marxism at the end of the 19th century, all through the 20th century, they did this linguistic trick with people, and it was very effective. This is scientific socialism.
Scientific.
It gives it a nice kind of,
very nice,
polished allure. But it's scientific. It's proven. It's like a math formula. 2 + 2 is 4. You can't deny that. That's scientific. See, this is scientific reality that they're pushing here. Okay, it gives it the veneer of something of a higher quality. Okay, it's all BS.
Of course it is, and that's a very good analogy, because you have all the Bidens and all these. Biden, the guy was a sort of bottom of his class at Syracuse at law school, talking about science. I'm listening to the science. You wouldn't know one end of a Bunsen burner from the other, but I've got science. And of course, when you ask, with science, well, you've got one scientist says this, another scientist says that. I mean, there is no scientific consensus, but it's very good to say, well, I'm with the scientists.
And that's called the scientific method.
Right.
The fact that two different scientists disagree, that's called the scientific method. That's how we get to solve problems here. There isn't someone that's, Mr. and Mrs. Science. It doesn't exist, okay? And what they do is they politicize science and they squash the method.
Right, that's right. And that's why scientists don't talk about reality. I mean, that's just not the way. They conduct experiments precisely to test the theories that we try to explain things. That's the way. That's the scientific. And if the experiment fails, then you come up with a new experiment, or you look at why the experiment may have failed. But they don't say there is such a thing as reality, and I understand it, and you stupid people don't understand it. That definitely is not the scientific method.
There was a Netflix series. I'm trying to remember the name of it, but it was basically about a hospital at the turn of the century, turn of the 20th century, and these doctors were thinking about and trying to develop new procedures, even their own instruments and all that. And one of the things they were trying to do is try to, this is before cesarean section, they were trying to have a more convenient, less painful childbirth. And so they had all these peasant women, that they were experimenting on. And, the guy that was considered the great doctor, okay, and, he has all of his acolytes and people up in the theater watching.
Well, it looks like we've lost Peter. But anyway, this was a very good discussion. And we will, of course, be back, hopefully with a few. Okay. All right. Well, we're back. Okay. All right, Peter.
Good there.
Let's wrap this up before worse things happen. So good discussion. And remember, if you like the gaggle, please like, share, and subscribe. See you soon. Bye.